All right, Bill, we're on the Cunningham Highway heading towards Cunningham's Gap. We're heading eastbound, so out of Warwick, heading towards Brisbane. And when we get to Cunningham's Gap, we're going to be doing a range descent. Before we get there, I thought we'd have a little chat about the truck that we're in today. If you can tell me a little bit about the truck.
Okay, so today we're in a Wickles Kenilworth. It's the SAR 610, and we're fully loaded. By the feel of it, we're up on our weight, so probably around the 64 mark. And yeah, we're going to go over the range again. We're going to go through the process of being prepared to head down the range, and most importantly, being prepared to make sure we can stop halfway down the range with the progress of the roadworks and the increase in demand or stopping and starting with the volumes of oversized overmass loads. Yep.
There's quite a variety of trucks and heavy vehicles that use this range. Can you tell me a little bit about what that means for trucks, with different trucks being on the road and maybe different speeds they might be doing, and what that means about range descents and how you can do that safely?
Yeah, well, with the PBS vehicles, like higher performance vehicles, they have a bigger size or a higher mass, and a little bit more care and attention needs to be given to that when descending the hills, and even so coming up the hills too, Nick. Stopping an A double coming up over the range, they can be up on their 90-ton mark, so it takes a bit to be able to take off again, like without doing damage on the vehicle. But this is a major freight route. There's a lot of vehicles going through every day, and there's an increase with the PBS vehicles. So yeah, it's just a hill that has to be treated with a lot of respect.
The importance with a range descent like Cunningham's Gap, and like a lot of the larger range descents that are in southeast Queensland and in the state of Queensland, is getting it right before you start the descent.
Sure, yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about the importance of getting your intended descent correct before you actually enter the descent itself?
Drivers need to know what their vehicles are capable of doing. Like, you can't just jump in a vehicle and head down the gap or any ranges around here with a steep descent without knowing what your vehicle capability is. Making sure that you are prepared to go down the range. So again, today we're in a automated transmission, so it's a Road Ranger automated. And that just means it's still the crash box. It just has the computer driving the gear changes for us, rather than having ourselves changing the gears and pressing down on clutches and everything. It does everything by itself, so it's a lot more relaxing to drive for sure. But you've still got to take control of that change going down the range. You've still got to be able to be in full control. And at the top of the range, you'll come across a sign up here saying, trucks and buses must use low gear. That means we've got to be in a gear suitable to go down the range, so we don't have to apply the foot brake. And that goes for any mountain that has a sign up the top there. You've got to be in a suitable gear, so you're not applying the primary brake. And auxiliary brakes must be used. It's as simple as that.
One thing we know with range descent incidents involving heavy vehicles is it's not just Road Ranger manual boxes that these incidents are occurring. It's about half actually, and the automated boxes in trucks, whilst it's certainly a lot easier to drive than your manual Road Ranger, there's still a responsibility on the driver there to make sure that they know what they're doing and that they have control of the heavy vehicle before they enter that descent. I think probably the key message with long and steep range descents for loaded heavy vehicles is there's a lot of risk of trying to make changes once you're in the descent. It's really important that you have an understanding of that range descent before you enter the range descent, and that your speed and gear and your setup of your truck before you're in that descent needs to occur before you're actually in that descent.
you've got to be in the right gear, the right speed prior to the descent. So, we've got different types of transmissions. You've got your crash boxes, you've got your, which is non-synchro. Then you've got your synchro mesh transmissions. You've got your automated chains like we just spoke about. But, something we don't touch on much is the automatic transmissions. So, and the smaller units. So if you have an Allison transmission which has a automatic, which has a torque converter in it rather than a clutch mechanism, there even needs to be a bit more respect on that going down these steep hills, because they haven't got, being a smaller motor, smaller horsepower and braking power, they haven't got the braking power like these bigger ones do. So, if you're trying to ride your brakes, trying to keep it under control going down a range, you're going to lose your power of your brake. It's going to start having brake fade and heat coming out of your brakes. So with the automatics, it's probably more important to start off slower, be in control, and if you think that you've got it all under control and you're going too slow, well then you might go up a gear. But going down these ranges in a manual mode in the Allison transmission auto is very important.
We're talking about that once you're in the descent with too high a speed, if there's an over reliance on your foot brakes or your rather than your engine auxiliary brakes, then you can, on a long steep descent, you can start to build too much heat in your brakes, especially if they're drum brakes. Bill, can you tell me, ideally we don't ever want to end up in that situation because that really is an emergency, but if you find yourself in a position where you feel you're in a scenario where the truck is starting to get away from you and you're starting to lose that braking ability, what are some of the things you can do as a truck driver to try and bring that under control, or at least maybe warn others about what's going on?
Yeah, look, Nick, that's a dangerous situation to be in. Like, what can you do? Get on the UHF, call people, put your hazard lights on. You're losing control of the vehicle. If you do make it to arrestor bed, well, by all means, that's going to be your safest option, is go up the arrestor bed. There is another thing too, when you find yourself in that situation, by applying your foot brake and keeping the pressure on the brake, that actually makes it worse. So I know it's hard to sort of understand, but when you apply your foot brake and you don't release that pressure, that means that the brake pads are in contact with your brake drums or your disc brakes, on your rotors. That means that they're in contact all the time. They're not getting any chance to cool off. So by applying your brake and releasing your brake intermittently, that will allow you to get a little bit of cooling time between each brake application. So, if you are panicking and you do feel you're losing control, apply your brake on and off, and hopefully make it to the arrestor bed, and don't be afraid to use it.
Yeah, and something else I think trucks can do in those scenarios where they're unable to bring their truck speed back under control is down on the horn, a constant horn. So for light vehicles, because I think light vehicles aren't necessarily going to know what's going on, right? So you're trying to clear a path. You're obviously trying to bring your speed down and looking for a safe place to arrest the truck. Now, Cunningham's Gap does have an arrestor bed. It's located about halfway down the slope. And if you are in a scenario where you are losing control of your truck and you're unable to bring your truck to a stop, absolutely the arrestor bed should be used to bring the truck to a safe halt. Okay, Bill, so we've just arrived at the top of Cunningham's Gap. There's roadworks underway here. We're in a queue. We'll be released soon to go down the mountain. Part of the project has been endeavouring, to really try and keep traffic moving through the site whilst we're undertaking these works. So we've done a lot of work to keep the delays to a minimum. every now and then we do have oversized, overmass vehicles that need to come through. Those vehicles, sorry, are typically over-width. And so that means that we can't safely have two directions of travel passing each other. So that will require us to bring all traffic to a stop on the opposing direction, and will allow that oversized, overmass vehicle to continue through. When we have to do that, those trucks, especially if they're coming up the range, will move quite slowly, and so the holds may be a little bit longer whilst we endeavour to get them through the site safely. As we approach the end of a queue, no matter where it is, one thing that we like to ask drivers to do is to put your hazards on as you're approaching the end of a queue. And that's especially if you don't have anyone behind you, and that's so if there's vehicles approaching, they can see that something's going on, that they've got to come to a stop. And it's probably as well at Cunningham's Gap, it's probably a good opportunity for drivers of heavy vehicles to start to have a think about how they're going to safely approach the descent here. Now, whilst the project is underway and the roadworks are here, the speed limit is reduced. This is ordinarily at the top of the descent, a 60 and a 70 km/h zone. It sort of progressively increases as you move down the mountain. Whilst the project roadworks are underway, it's a 40 km/h zone. Now, that's probably a speed that or less, in some cases a lot less, is actually the safe speed for a heavy vehicle to be doing anyway. All right, Bill, so the traffic queue's now been released. We're at the top of Cunningham's Gap. We're approaching the descent. We're coming into a roadwork zone. The roadwork zone has a reduced speed limit. It's a 40 km/h zone through the roadworks. Can you tell me a little bit about range descents and what it might mean if other things are going on, like roadworks, where the speed limits might be reduced?
So with the reduced speed limits, like the 40 km/h for us heavy vehicles, that's probably good for us anyway. So heavy vehicles will go down a lot less than 40 km/h. So we have to be prepared to make sure that we've got all our brakes cool and not using our brakes down the range, so we can actually use our brakes to pull us up if we have to stop down the range. So if we, with the roadworks going on, if there's a possibility of us having to stop because of machinery being moved, or like Nick said, there's an oversize coming up and we're halfway down the range and we need to pull up, we've got to be able to do it. So the only way you're going to be able to do that with cold brakes, so make sure your brakes are effective, and by making sure they're effective is not use them when you're going down the range. So it is very important to make sure that you are prepared to be able to pull up halfway down the range.
Yeah, and I guess so the key message here really with these range descents is take your time, reduce your speed, don't be in a hurry, don't let light vehicles as well bully you into trying to keep your speed up. You have an enormous responsibility with a heavy vehicle. There's a lot of weight, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of skill required. It's far safer, you're far better off approaching a descent slower and then faster.
Oh, for certain. So, without the roadworks going down here, you probably went down and, us heavy vehicles with a beat up on road ranger, you probably go down and, fifth or sixth gear. Well, while the roadworks is on, just slow it down a little bit. So just be prepared, just be prepared to pull up and have cold brakes to be able to pull you up. Here we are coming up to the traffic lights. So we're coming up from the western side of the range, and we had to stop halfway up the range. And during that stop, the timer. So the engine will go into a shutdown mode because your park brakes are on and you're idling. So just be prepared to override that. So A, your motor's still going, and B, you've still got air in your system, so you're still charging the trailers. You don't have any air problems when you want to take off, like your brakes holding you back to enable you to take off.
Another thing I think with heavy vehicles and applying the foot brake is you want to be off the brake as much as possible. Ideally, you've picked a gear and a speed where you don't need to use it at all and you're using your auxiliary engine braking only. Can you tell me about how to safely slow down the vehicle if you do need to use your foot brake
So
in a descent?
If you need to slow it down, like you've gone down there too fast, you need to slow down, Okay, brake applications, so you know, short time on the brake and then brake off. But while you're braking and you get your RPMs down low enough, you know, to grab a lower gear, bring your revs down to 1,000 RPM, so it enables you to grab a lower gear. And like here, I'm over the top of the range now. I'm in gear number 7 and it's holding nice and steady. We've got no real issues there. We're well and truly under 40k an hour, so we're sitting on around about 20 kilometres per hour. But you've just got to make sure you're in the right rev range, you're doing the right speed, you're not using your foot brake at all, and if that vehicle in front of us pulls up, well then we can pull up safely. I've got cold brakes, and it's just so much easier and safer to do. And give plenty of gap between you and the vehicle in front. You know, don't tailgate.
And Bill, there's some rules of thumb. I mean, every truck's different, so it's hard to say that any one rule, there's one size fits all. But there is some rules of thumb about how long and how many times you can press a brake, as well as what gear you should be in for descents. And one of them is that the gear that you came up in at the end of the slope is the gear that you use to descend, or one less.
Yeah, look, I go one less. You know, the old days, you know, when you went up, you sort of went down in pretty safely. But these days, you know, braking, like engine braking and compression braking on vehicles, yeah, you can probably safely go down a gear higher than you actually come up with the, you know, with good engine braking. But every manufacturer is different. But as a golden rule, to keep it safe, what gear you go up in is the gear you go down in to keep it safe. If you're not sure, go a gear below. But you know, technology is changing. Manufacturers are coming up with fantastic innovation with you know, retardation and engine braking. And yeah, and here we see that the traffic stopped going up the range. So again, there's going to be heavy vehicles down here having to do lifts off, you know, take off on the range uphill. So again, making sure lowest possible gear, you know, diff locks, make sure they're engaged, especially in wet weather, to give you a bit more traction. And again, just take your time.
We're in an automated vehicle. Automated obviously has the option you can switch to manual mode. Now again, every truck's different. We're in a Kenworth right now, but can you tell me a little bit about automated vehicle descent and what your options are to make sure that you're bringing the vehicle down slow enough and continuing in a slow descent in a truck like we are in today?
All right, automated mode, like automated transmissions, they're no different to a manual transmission. They give you the opportunity to go into a manual mode, so you can select between an automatic change and a manual change. So best way to come down the range is in a, you know, take full control. So put it in a manual mode, select that gear. Again, at the start, at the top of the range, select the lower gear than what you would think, and then work your way up. You know, so we selected a gear at the top there, which was gear number 7, and then we went up to gear number 8. And once we get past this roadworks down here, I'll probably go up another gear. So it's easier and safer to start slow and work up rather than go too fast and trying to bring it down.
Hopefully it comes through on the audio here, Bill, but I can really hear that the engine, the auxiliary braking's doing its job.
Yeah.
We're in a Kenworth. It's got a throaty engine brake. And we're moving through different stages of engine brake there. Can you tell me a little bit about that? There's different stages in these trucks with engine brake.
Yeah, so with these particular vehicles, most manufacturers of the bigger vehicles certainly have a couple of different stages of engine braking or retardation on their transmissions. And you float in between the different stages to keep your high RPM up. High RPM is the key, so you know, keeping it between that sort of, you know, 1700 to 2100 RPM, that is a key for good engine braking, so high RPM. With an automatic transmission, like we go back to automatic with the smaller horsepower trucks, it's much the same. It's got a manual mode. You can go into a manual mode and you start off slow, and if you feel like that it is too slow for you, well, you can up change and use various stages. Now, some of those smaller trucks won't have an engine brake as such. They may only have an exhaust brake. So you've only got one setting. So you need to be a bit more cautious and know how that actually performs to be able to negotiate the hills.
Yeah, we've just moved through the roadwork side. It's a 40 kilometre per hour speed limit.
Yep.
And we're doing, say, around 20, 30 kilometres per hour.
Yep.
And that feels like probably a safe speed for this truck, no matter what the speed limit is.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's not about the speed coming down the ranges. It's all about keeping it safe and keeping the brakes cold so you can pull up when you need to. It's not about speed.
And that's something certainly at Cunningham's Gap, but it could be anywhere on a range descent. You may need to come to a stop, and so you need to be approaching these descents with a speed that will allow you to do that if required to do so.
Yeah, no, exactly right. Exactly right. Start slow, build up. Build it up so you're safe. Keep off the brakes. Yeah. And also another thing too, you'll see these trucks just pass us. Well, they've got to be on their brakes because the vehicle in front's slowing down. So, the guys behind you might be empty, but the vehicle in front's loaded. So there's going to be a little bit of variance of speed. So you're better off just keeping it steady down here and not having to apply your brakes when you come up behind slower vehicles.
It's always important, I think, with trucks like this to just keep in mind the responsibility that goes with operating a heavy vehicle.
Yeah, oh, it does. We as drivers, we have a big responsibility for road safety.
And what we need is for heavy vehicle users that are ascending and descending to do their bit as well, which is really, it's quite simple. It's know the descent, know your truck, know your gear, and approach these descents with a lot of caution, and really, it's about speed. It's about getting your speed right before you enter the descent, and then controlling your truck safely down the descent. And if you have to go slower, so be it.
And also, you got the roadworks back up the top there, but you've got overtaking lanes down here. So there's plenty of opportunity to get around. So if you do come up behind another slow vehicle, or you've got a heap of vehicles behind you, you might be holding up. There's opportunity to pass coming down the range. So it's not a real big issue. Yeah, it could be cranes coming out here. You get those heavy cranes, they'll be coming down low speed. You get heavy haulage, guys over 100 tonne, they'll be coming down on a slow pace too, and going up at a slow pace. So, just prepared. You'll come across these slow loads and slow moving machinery, and you just got to be able to pull up and stop. You need to make sure you're ready for it. You do have to, use your peripheral vision. Keep an eye on your mirrors, keep an eye on your spotter mirrors, be aware of the vehicles around you. If the traffic stopped and you're coming down, be aware of the vehicles around you.
All right, Bill, we're about 3/4 of the way down the Cunningham's Gap range descent now. And soon we'll be coming to the end of the descent. Can you tell me, as you're approaching the bottom of the hill, providing that's assuming you know the descent well, can you tell me about the next stages in your truck? What are you thinking of next as you finish the descent?
Yeah, well, look, we've just passed the sign there, end of trucks using low gear. It's not the end of the hill for here though. That's one big thing I want to stipulate. You've still got a fairly long downhill section to go yet. Keep it under control. There's no use hitting the accelerator and powering back up, because otherwise you'll be back on the brakes again. So just let the weight of the vehicle, so let the kinetic energy push you down over the hill. Take your engine brakes off, let the weight push, and just sort of roll over the next part of this this range here. And we're hitting the 100 zone now. So again, not powering on, but just let the weight push you down, keep it under control. I'll put the engine brakes back on soon. I'll go into an automatic mode now, so we put it back in automatic mode, so the transmission will take over and does what it's supposed to do, and we'll just coast down here. We'll keep an eye on the speed. We're up on 80k an hour now. It'll rock on up a bit higher once we get down here in this bit of a gully, so engine brakes back on, and you're full control again, no issues at all.
You need to drive to the conditions. So as those speed limits start to increase as you're coming down the range, if you're in a loaded or a heavy vehicle or a combination that requires you to manage that momentum of the vehicle as you're descending, you need to drive to the conditions. You need to drive the conditions that are suitable for that configuration and that vehicle.
You don't need to be doing the fast miles over rough roads. You just back it down a little bit. You drive according to the conditions. Exactly right. One thing I want to ask you, Nick, your turn, is how, if I'm doing an oversized load out of Brisbane, and how do you guys get informed about wide loads and permits and that sort of stuff? How does that work?
Yeah, so there's a number of requirements associated with oversized, overmass vehicles and their ability to operate on the state road network in Queensland. Now, there are varying conditions by state, so it's really important that you check with the road authority for the state that you're driving within to understand their conditions. The best way to do that is to start with the conditions of operation database, where you put in your route and the vehicle type and your intended dates of travel, and that will produce a report for you that tells you about some of the limitations that might be on the route that you intend to take. So there could be all sorts of things. They're typically added to the conditions of database, and that's there for heavy vehicle safety, but it's also there so that heavy vehicle operators and logistics can plan their route, specifically for some oversized, overmass approaching Cunningham's Gap and the Cunningham's Gap project site. As the roadworks continue, the traffic conditions will change. So it's really important that oversized, overmass operators are checking that conditions of operations database regularly